I'm not a nervous flyer. I've been on enough planes to know the routine. Buckle up, tune out, touchdown. Still, I've never liked sitting by the window. Not because of the height, because of what I've seen before. But that's another story. This flight was different from the beginning. I was boarding a red-eye from Chicago to Portland. Middle seat, row 17. I tried to upgrade, but the flight was packed, and I wasn't in the mood to argue with the gate agent. I just wanted to get home. As I approached my row, I saw a man already seated there, in the middle. He was tall, clean-cut, wearing a plain blue hoodie and black jeans. He glanced up when he saw me hesitate. "Sorry," I said, holding up my boarding pass. "I think that's my seat." He looked down, then back up. "You sure?" "Yeah, 17B. He shrugged. "Want to switch? I've got aisle." Now, normally, I'd say no. I hate the window. I hate the aisle even more, always getting bumped by carts and elbows. But something about him unsettled me. Not threatening. Just like I shouldn't sit next to him. "Sure," I said quickly. "That's fine." He gave me a tight smile and stepped aside. I slipped into the aisle seat and buckled in, keeping my backpack under the seat in front of me. As passengers continued to board, I tried not to look at him, but I couldn't help glancing once. He was staring at the back of the seat in front of him, completely still. No phone, no earbuds. Just staring. I chalked it up to being tired. It was past 11, and most of us looked like ghosts already. Then came the announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome you aboard Flight 279 with service to Portland. Please ensure your carry-ons are properly stored and fasten your seatbelts. We'll be pushing back shortly." The cabin lights dimmed. The plane vibrated as the engines roared to life. And then, takeoff. I closed my eyes. It wasn't fear, just habit. I don't like looking out the window. Maybe that's why I didn't notice the man in my original seat vanish. I woke up with a jolt, the kind that snaps your spine straight and leaves you gasping like you missed a step on invisible stairs. For a second, I didn't know where I was. Dim overhead lights. A low, constant hum. My knees brushing the seat in front of me. The smell of over-recycled air and something vaguely citrus-scented from the napkin in my lap. Right. The plane. I glanced at the empty cup in my tray table. Warm ginger ale had gone flat while I slept. My head ached from sleeping upright. I turned to my left. The seat beside me, the one the man had taken, was empty. Not just empty. Immaculate. The belt was still buckled across the seat, lying perfectly straight. The safety card stuck out at an angle like it hadn't been touched. The little headrest was perfectly smooth. Not pressed in, not wrinkled, no hair left behind. But I remembered him sitting there. I remembered switching. I remembered his hoodie brushing against my arm when he adjusted his position. And now he was gone. I waited, eyes locked on the seat, trying to reason with myself. Maybe he went to the bathroom. Maybe he was stretching his legs. But the lavatory sign above the cabin wasn't red, it was green. Vacant. I pressed the call button. The flight attendant who approached looked a little younger than me, maybe mid-20s, with a kind but distracted face. "Hi," I said, lowering my voice. "Sorry. There was a man sitting next to me earlier. He switched seats with me, actually. He hasn't come back, and I'm starting to get worried." She glanced at the middle seat and blinked slowly. "Sir, that seat's been empty the whole flight." "No," I said, the word coming out harder than I intended. "No, he was there. Tall guy, early 30s, blue hoodie, black jeans. He was sitting there before takeoff." She tilted her head. "I helped with boarding. I don't recall anyone sitting in 17B. I pulled out my phone, opened my airline app, showed her my boarding pass. "See? 17B, that was my seat." He asked if I'd take the aisle. I agreed. The attendant's brow furrowed. She tapped something on her tablet. After a few seconds of scrolling, she looked up with a polite, neutral expression, the kind customer service people wear when they're about to disagree with you. "According to the manifest," she said gently, "seat 17B wasn't assigned." What? My fingers went cold around the phone. That can't be. I was definitely in 17B. I remember printing my boarding pass. It said 17B. I never sit in the aisle. "Sir," she said carefully, "you've been in 17C since boarding. I helped you store your bag under the seat." No. He took my seat. He offered. The attendant gave a sympathetic smile and placed a bottle of water on my tray. "If you're feeling unwell or anxious, I can ask the captain if there's a doctor on board." "I'm not sick," I snapped. "I'm not confused." He was there. She stepped back and gave a nod. I'll check with the other attendants. Maybe someone else remembers him. She walked off. I stared at the seat again. Why would I lie about something like this? Why would my memory be so detailed? His facial stubble, the folds in his hoodie, the way he hadn't looked at me when he offered the switch. If I'd imagined it. I unbuckled my belt, got up, and turned toward the back of the plane. As I walked, I passed row after row of sleepy passengers, heads leaning against windows, eyes closed behind headphones, books resting on chests. No one looked up. When I reached the galley, 2 attendants were quietly sorting snacks. The woman I'd spoken to was whispering to a gray-haired man in a vest. They stopped talking as I approached. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice shaking now. "I really need someone to take this seriously." A man was sitting in 17B. He disappeared. I know how this sounds, but I didn't imagine him. The older attendant frowned. What did he look like? Taller than me. Maybe 6 feet. Blue hoodie. Pale. No bags, at least none that I saw. He exchanged a glance with his colleague. There was no one on the manifest for 17B. If someone had moved during boarding, we would have documented the change. But you didn't see everyone. You can't remember every single face. "Sir, this is a full flight. That seat has been empty since we left O'Hare." "No," I whispered. "It hasn't." I leaned forward slightly. "Can you check security footage?" The woman shook her head. "We don't have cabin cameras. Just ones for the cargo doors and cockpit access." Of course they didn't. They gave me ginger tea, suggested I return to my seat, said they'd make a note of it in the flight log just in case. Back in my row, the middle seat was still untouched. I sat, bones aching from tension, and stared at it. I forced myself to take deep breaths. Maybe you dreamed it. Maybe you got up and sat down in the wrong seat. Maybe you imagined switching. But then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the notification. New photo saved. Confused, I opened the Photos app. And there it was, a picture I didn't take. A blurry shot of me sitting in the aisle seat, and him, sitting in the middle, head turned toward the camera. The timestamp was from 27 minutes ago. I stared at the photo. He was sitting there. Not a hallucination, not a fading memory. There, in the middle seat, staring into the lens with a neutral expression. There was no flash, no blur from movement. Just a perfect, sharp image taken from above my shoulder. And I never took it. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the gallery. Nothing else was new. Just that one photo, timestamped 27 minutes ago. No apps were open, no recent notifications from the camera. I hadn't pocket dialed. My phone had been locked. I locked it again and slipped it into my hoodie pocket, but I couldn't stop glancing at the seat next to me. Still empty. Still pristine. I rubbed my eyes, took a breath, and decided to try something insane. I reached over and pressed down on the middle seat cushion. Warm. Not just warm, body warm. Like someone had been sitting there seconds ago. I yanked my hand back like I'd touched something toxic. Across the aisle, a little girl was watching me. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, and too old for her face. "Did you see the man who sat here?" I asked softly. She nodded. "What did he look like?" She pointed at the seat. He smiled. Her mom leaned forward from the window seat and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sweetie, don't bother people." "She's not bothering me," I said quickly. "Did you see him too?" The woman gave me a tight smile. "Sir, there's no one sitting there." I turned back to the girl, but she had buried her face in her stuffed unicorn and refused to speak again. I didn't sleep for the rest of the flight. I watched the seat. I watched the window, though I hated it. And I watched my reflection in the screen of the blank TV on the seat back in front of me. And once, just once, I saw a second reflection beside mine. A figure with no features. Just a shape. A shadow where the man should be. Watching me. When we landed, the cabin lit up like nothing had happened. People yawned, gathered their bags, thanked the crew. I remained seated until nearly everyone had left. I stood slowly. The aisle stretched forward like a tunnel. Every instinct told me not to look back. But I did. The seat was still empty. I stepped off the plane, into the jet bridge, and turned to one of the flight attendants who had helped earlier. "There was someone sitting there," I said again. "The photo proves it." He gave me a polite, almost robotic smile. "Sir, we filed a report based on your concerns. If you have further questions, you can speak with security at the gate." So I did. At the terminal, I showed my photo to a TSA officer. He frowned and said I'd need to file a lost persons report, but only if I had the man's name. Which I didn't, because we hadn't exchanged more than 10 words. They took my statement, logged the image, said someone would follow up. No one ever did. When I got home, I checked the airline seating map for that flight. 17B was marked as unassigned. No upgrades, no boarding changes. Just a blank space. I called customer service. They pulled the record and confirmed it. You were ticketed for 17C. The seat beside you was empty. I emailed the photo. Their response? We are unable to verify the timestamp or source of this image. For passenger privacy, we cannot investigate further. That was the official response. Unofficially, I kept digging. I found a Reddit thread, obscure, buried deep in a travel forum titled The Wrong Seat. It had only a few comments. The post read, I was supposed to be in 14A. Someone was already sitting there when I boarded. He smiled and said, take mine. I ended up in 14C. After takeoff, he was gone. Just gone. The flight attendant said 14A was empty the whole time. I showed her a drawing I made of his face. She said it looked like her brother. He died in a crash 10 years ago, on that same route. That sent a chill through my bones. I scrolled down, heart thudding. Most replies were jokes. One user claimed it was a writing prompt. Another said it was airline creepypasta. But someone replied, same thing happened to me on a flight to Anchorage. Guy offered to swap seats. I took his. He vanished. No one else remembered him. I still see him sometimes. In reflections. In windows. Never where he should be. The comment had 2 upvotes. No replies. I've flown 4 more times since that night. I never take a seat I wasn't assigned. I never switch, no matter how tired or uncomfortable I am. But sometimes, even when I'm exactly where I should be, I still see him. A glimpse in the tray table sheen. In the plastic of the window shade. Once, in my own mirrored sunglasses, perched on my nose. He's always the same. Same hoodie. Same blank stare. Like he's waiting for me to move again. And when I do, he'll be there. Ready to take my place. It took weeks before I dared to open the photo again. By then, I had deleted and reinstalled every app on my phone, reset the device twice, and even switched SIM cards. But the image always came back. Same photo. Same timestamp. Same man, sitting in the seat that supposedly no one occupied. The worst part? He wasn't looking at the camera anymore. He was now looking at me. Not in the reflection. Through it. Like each time I reopened the image, he had shifted, just slightly. I compared the saved versions. Each one was a little different. First his posture changed. Then his head turned. Then his mouth opened just a little too wide. I stopped showing it to people. One coworker said it gave her migraines. Another told me he couldn't sleep the night after I sent it to him. When I tried posting it online, Reddit, Twitter, even 4chan, the image file would corrupt, glitch into grayscale fragments, or just disappear entirely after uploading. But it never left my phone, and it never stopped changing. Eventually, I did something stupid. I booked the exact same flight, same route, same time, same seat, 17B. It felt like the only way to prove I wasn't losing my mind. Or maybe I was trying to lure him back. I didn't tell anyone. Not friends, not family. Just showed up at the airport with my boarding pass and a growing dread in my stomach. I was the last to board. On purpose. I didn't want to risk seeing someone else in the seat. I needed to know if I walked down that aisle and it was empty, I might find something. Row 17. Right side. Aisle. Window. Middle. The seat was empty. I slid into 17B slowly, heart pounding. The cabin lights were dimmed, passengers settling in for the red eye. No one seemed to notice me. I buckled in, placed my backpack under the seat, and rested my hands in my lap. The seat was warm, but not from another person. It was something else. The warmth pulsed like a heartbeat. Slow. Rhythmic. I sat perfectly still, not daring to move, as a strange static crawled up my spine. Something shifted in the overhead bin above. I flinched, looked up, but it was closed. Unmoving. Then I felt it under me. A bulge in the cushion. Something solid where there should have been only foam. I slid my hand beneath my thigh and felt around carefully. Something paper-thin and rough. I pulled it out slowly. It was a torn scrap of a boarding pass. Name, redacted. Flight 279. Seat, 17B. Status, standby, not cleared. The paper was yellowed, brittle, and smelled like smoke. There was no barcode. Just that status. Standby, not cleared. I turned it over. On the back, in faint handwriting, were 4 words. Thank you for switching. I panicked and stuffed it into my pocket. Press the call button. The flight attendant, a man I hadn't seen before, approached. Yes, sir. Something's wrong with this seat. His expression didn't change. You're not supposed to be in 17B. My throat dried up. What? You switched once. That's enough. He smiled, and I swear to God his teeth didn't match his face. They were too straight, too white, like a mask peeled back just enough. I stood up fast, nearly knocking into the aisle. I want to move. I'm not staying here. He didn't stop me. I grabbed my bag and moved 3 rows back to an empty window seat. I didn't care if someone complained. I didn't care if I got kicked off. But no one said a word. Not the passengers. Not the crew. I kept the torn boarding pass in my coat pocket the entire flight. When we landed, I checked again, and it was gone. Just gone. Later, at home, I found something worse. The airline app had updated with my new trip, but my boarding pass showed seat 17B. Even though I'd physically moved, even though I'd sat elsewhere, there was no record of a seat change. No report. Nothing. And when I opened the photo again, the one of the man in the seat, now he wasn't there. The seat was empty, and my face, reflected in the window, was smiling. I stopped flying after that. For a while. But business trips stacked up. Family gatherings loomed. Life crept forward like it always does, oblivious to fear, uncaring about the things you wish you could unsee. Eventually, I had no choice but to board another plane. This time, I chose a different airline, different route, different everything. I even asked a travel agent to assign me a seat nowhere near row 17, just to be safe. When I boarded, I checked my boarding pass a dozen times. 23D. Aisle. Near the back. No chance of overlap. And yet, as I walked down the narrow aisle, each row sliding past me like a countdown, I felt it again. That low-level hum just below hearing. That static buzz behind my eyes. Like the plane knew me. I sat down in 23D. Kept my bag close. Avoided eye contact with the passengers around me. When the plane lifted off the runway, I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "You're safe. You're not in 17B. It's over." But it wasn't. Because halfway through the flight, I got a text. No sender. No number. Just a message. Seat 17B is available. My stomach dropped. I showed the phone to the person beside me, some middle-aged guy reading a Clive Cussler novel. "Do you get weird messages on flights?" I asked. He glanced at my screen and frowned. "It's blank." "What?" "There's no message. You just opened the Notes app or something." I backed away in my seat, suddenly nauseous. I turned the phone off, then removed the battery. But even with it powered down, the screen flashed once, briefly, a black screen with a single line of text. "We saved it for you." I didn't sleep that night, or the night after, because it wasn't just the phone. The photo, the one of the man, was back. But now it showed a different seat, a different plane, a different time. Me, sitting in 17B, looking straight ahead, mouth open, smiling. Behind me, barely visible in the blur, was someone leaning over the seat. Not the man from before. Someone else. A woman this time. Pale face. Long hair like static. Black eyes. And I swear, she was whispering into my ear. I stopped flying altogether after that. Train. Bus. Rental car. Anything that kept me on the ground. But strange things followed me there too. Elevators skipping floors. Hotel room mirrors fogging up when no one had showered. A second shadow under my feet, even when I was alone. And then 2 months ago, I got a package. No return address. No postage. Just a box, inside it, a single item. A boarding pass. Flight 279. Seat 17B. This one was dated 2 days in the future. I tried to throw it out. Burn it. Rip it to pieces. But it always comes back. In my mailbox. On my pillow. In the glove box of my locked car. I once found it inside the fridge, wrapped in plastic like it was waiting to be preserved. Last week, I finally went back to the airport. Not to fly. Just to look. I stood in the middle of Terminal C, watching passengers rush to and from gates. The overhead speaker announced boarding for Flight 279. Gate 41. It shouldn't exist anymore. The flight was discontinued last year. But there it was. Gate 41. Open. Staffed. People scanning boarding passes like nothing was wrong. I stepped closer, blending into the crowd. And then I saw them. The man from before. Blue hoodie. Black jeans. Face unreadable. He stood just past the gate, 1 foot inside the jet bridge. And beside him was me. Another version of me. Same clothes. Same face. Eyes locked with mine. Smiling. I backed away. Turned. Ran. That night, my phone turned on by itself. The screen showed a countdown. 1 minute and 34 seconds. 1 minute and 33 seconds. 1 minute and 32 seconds. I tried removing the battery again. No use. This time, it wasn't real hardware. It was like the screen was part of me, reflected in my dreams, echoed in the back of my skull. Everywhere I go now, I hear it. A voice I can't place, whispering from the vents. Switch back. He's still waiting. It's your seat. I don't know what happens if I go back. If I sit down in 17B again. If I finally return what I took, or who I replaced. But I know this. He never left the plane. And if I don't take the seat again, he's going to come find me.